Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Episode 316, recorded for August 5th, 2025. Microsoft's new AI agent has trust issues with software. Good evening, Matt. How's it going?
I mean, I have trust issues with a lot of things, including AI and software. So I totally
and
get it.
Microsoft.
And
That's my
definitely have trust issues with Microsoft. There's too many PTSDs. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's another fantastic week. Ryan is still out on vacation, but we'll be back next week. And we have some rumors that there might be someone coming in from the British countryside at some point soon. So we'll see if that happens or not. But
we really need the smart person back. Let's be honest.
we really need the guy who knows all the AI stuff, because the AI market is just continuing to explode, and I've been doing my best to try to keep up with it. But yeah, he's more into it than all of us combined. So, but it's time for earnings once again. Sorry, Matt.
I knew it was coming.
You should.
You normally wait like a half a second more, and I was moving my hands up. I didn't quite get there fast enough.
Well, it's partially because I forgot if I clicked it, if it would hit play, or if I had to click it and then hit play. So there would have been a pause, but it just played. So there you go. But earnings season came and has gone once again. And it was relatively good earnings for 2 out of 3, which, hey, that's not bad. That's a majority. Alphabet, or Google, as we like to call them, beat earnings expectations and raised their spending forecast. Google Cloud revenue hit $13.62 billion, up 32% year over year, with OpenAI now using Google's infrastructure for ChatGPT, signaling growing enterprise confidence in Google's AI infrastructure capabilities. Alphabet is raising its 2025 capital expenditure forecast from $75 billion to $85 billion, driven by cloud and AI demand, with plans to increase spending further in 2026 as they compete for AI workloads. AI overviews now serve 2 billion monthly users across 200 countries, while Gemini app reached 450 million monthly active users, demonstrating Google's scale in deploying AI services globally. And the $10 billion increase in planned capital spending reflects the infrastructure arms race among cloud providers to capture AI workloads, which requires significant compute and specialized hardware investments. Google Cloud's growth rate of 32% outpaces its overall revenue growth of 14%, indicating the strategic importance of cloud services as traditional search and advertising faces increased AI competition, mostly driven by AI, which is sort of ironic.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that everyone's going to be spending more money with all these AI workloads, and if not many CFOs, I'm sure, are looking at the bills going, oh my God, are we actually getting paid enough to cover these costs? So, I think you'll see that theme across most of the providers, but I mean, nothing here really shocks me that much.
I mean, when you're talking about GPUs, it definitely doesn't shock me at all that these are billions of dollars of investment. And, I don't know what it takes to actually run one of these large models at like ultimate scale that like a ChatGPT needs or Anthropic, but I have to imagine it's just thousands and thousands of GPUs just working nonstop. I mean, considering all the rate limiting that I get all the time, it seems to be quite a bit.
Yeah, and even just training the new models, they're all coming out, the 4.5, the 4.5s, the 4.1, and all these other ones, that just the initial compute is in the billions too, I feel like. So it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Well, Alphabet actually announced these earnings almost 3 weeks ago. For some reason, they decided to get away from Microsoft and Amazon, so they weren't all compared at the same time. So they have a week delay. And then Microsoft came up. And they reported their Q4 fiscal 2025 earnings day after recording last week, with revenue of $76.44 billion, up 18% year over year, and beating expectations, marking the fastest growth in over 3 years. Azure revenue grew 39% in Q4, significantly exceeding analyst expectations of 34 to 35%, with Microsoft disclosing for the first time that Azure and cloud services exceeded $75 billion in annual revenue for fiscal 2025. Microsoft's AI investments are showing returns with 100 million monthly active users across Copilot products, driving higher revenue per user for Microsoft 365 commercial cloud products. Capital expenditures reached $24.2 billion for the quarter, up 27% year over year, as Microsoft continues aggressive data center build out for AI workloads alongside peers like Alphabet and Meta. Microsoft's market cap crossed $4 trillion after trading after the announcement, becoming only the second company after NVIDIA to reach that milestone, driven by strong cloud and AI momentum. And yeah, if you're doing well in the AI space, you're making a lot of money on the stock market right now.
Yeah, and Microsoft was, ended up inadvertently being first to scene with backing OpenAI back, years ago, and it doesn't surprise me. And they've gone all in on AI and the Copilot theme. There was a last keynote or whatever it was, last conference. I was like, okay, my team and I had a running bet of how many times they were going to say Copilot during it. That was our tiebreaker, was essentially that we had internally, was how many times did they say it, because they're shoving it into everything. And just like we just said, and I'm sure we'll repeat in a minute now, is you need those GPUs. They cost lots of money, but they're making good money on them too.
So that meant that Amazon came up last, and they announced earnings last Thursday. And things weren't quite as great for them. That's basically how I would describe it. Basically, their key takeaways were AI, cloud growth, and tariffs. Of course, they're heavily impacted by the retail and infrastructure imports from China, so they're a little bit more impacted on that side than either Microsoft or Google is. But their capital expenditures could reach $118 billion in 2025, up from the previous $100 billion forecast, with spending primarily focused, of course, on AI as well. So capital is king right now. AWS revenue grew 18% year over year, trailing Microsoft's 39% and Google's 32% growth rates, though AWS maintains a significantly larger market share with the second player at approximately 65% of AWS's size. Amazon's generative AI initiatives are generating multiple billions in annualized revenue for AWS, with potential monetization through services like Alexa at $19.99 per month or free for Prime members. Despite initial concerns about tariff impacting costs, Amazon reported 11% growth in online store sales and 12% increase in items sold. That was with their Prime Day in the quarter as well. The company expects Q3 revenue up 13%, suggesting tariffs have been absorbed by suppliers and customers, though uncertainty remains with the U.S.-China trade agreement. But the big news there, slowest growth, but also the biggest number to grow. So it makes sense that it's a little bit slower. But I also think it's a reflection of the fact that their AI stuff is not as good.
Yeah, and they're trying across the board to get it up there, and they're just not quite there yet, I feel like.
I mean, not there yet, and they haven't been there for a while, which is the concerning part. And I don't know, Nova, I haven't really heard much about Nova since they launched. They talk a lot about their Anthropic partnership, which makes sense. But, I just I don't feel like they have the swagger in AI that the others do.
Yeah, but I compare Nova also to was it Microsoft's 5 model, whichever one it is, like their internal one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like everyone I talk to out there really uses GPT or Claude. A few people I know play with, I call it the specialty ones of Gemini, like the deep research ones, the analyzation, stuff like that. But I don't think that either Microsoft or Amazon, their own models really are anything standing.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's not trying though. So I mean, they
have a few.
Yeah, they're definitely a lot of open source. They're trying some things, trying to get it to be, a thing, but it's not what you'd expect. So it's interesting. I'm trying to see where Nova Micro. I mean, they're middle of the pack on LM Arena. And they don't even make the top 10 on most of the major categories on leaderboard. They are only in the overall overview, which is quite crazy.
To somebody that they were telling me, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I trust the source of that they were about 52 in the top models. So I don't think that they're very high up in them.
Yeah. So again, they're wanting to be competitive with those other models. They're just not. And where's Phi on this list? Let me see. I mean, Phi is a little bit below Nova, so yeah. You're close. They're maybe not as far off. Well, we'll see. I think this quarter, Amazon has to start really driving an AI story that people get excited about. People need to think Bedrock serious. They need to start using different ways. I mean, I know I'm using Claude through AWS natively a lot because I get away from the API limits and I can get a bill with my Amazon bill, and so that's kind of handy for a lot of things I'm doing where I don't want to worry about my API limits. There's definitely things you can do on Amazon that are cool, but then other areas, I was trying to integrate it into Rue Code the other day, and getting the Bedrock connector to work with it was a little screwy, and I was just sort of frustrated with it. And I got to come back to her and I'm like, just use my profile. And it's like, oh, okay, here's your profile. And it's like, nope, doesn't work. So I had to go figure out how to like provision a Bedrock API and do a bunch of things, and then I'll get there. But sort of interesting that it's not as plug and play as like Vertex, where you just plug it right in, or even some of the other solutions from ChatGPT or Anthropic's API directly. All right, well, in other ways that AI is how ML makes money, Gemini 2.5 DeepThink has now come out using parallel thinking techniques and extended inference time to solve complex problems. Now available to Google's AI Ultra subscribers in the Gemini app with a fixed daily prompt limit. The model achieves state-of-the-art performance on live CodeBench v6 and humanities last exam benchmarks, with a variation reaching gold medal standard at the International Mathematical Olympiad, though the consumer version trades some capability for faster response times. DeepThink excels at iterative development tasks like web development, scientific research, and algorithmic coding problems that require careful consideration of the trade-offs and time complexity. The technology uses novel reinforcement learning techniques to improve problem solving over time and automatically integrates with tools like code execution and Google Search for enhanced functionality. Google plans to release DeepThink via the Gemini API to trusted testers in coming weeks, signaling potential enterprise and developer applications for complex reasoning tasks in cloud environments.
I mean, the video they also show it within this article is interesting, of like how they are with the parallel thinking abilities, how it's able to think like in 100 different locations at once and try to build out those use cases where you and I can think a couple paths at the same time and, parallel path an issue. They talk about how it was able to kind of work through this mathematical equation and kind of build it out in multiple ways until it found which way was the right way. So it's going to be interesting to see how it can parallel process and how it will compare with other models over time.
Yeah, we'll have to see. These deep thinking models are the most fun to play with because some of those, you don't need it right away, but you want to like, hey, I want you to go plan out a weekend in Paris, or I want you to go compare these 3 companies' products based on public data and Reddit posts and things like that. And it goes, does all this research. It comes back with suggestions, like that stuff. That's kind of fun, and it takes a long time. And like if it's the more in depth it is, the better it is, in my opinion. So the deep thinking stuff is kind of the coolest, like heavy duty research stuff. It's not my most common use of AI, but like when I get to use it, I'm like always excited to use it.
I've definitely used it for like, hey, I needed a sprinkler for my yard and I don't want to think about even where to start for this, $60 item. So like I definitely used it in those ways, which I definitely enjoy.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what it does for a trip I have coming up soon. I've got a bunch of things my wife would like to do on the trip, and I want to come up with an itinerary and all the different things. And so I'm going to give it a bunch of parameters and probably try it with deep research and not deep research, because I want to see what it kind of comes with and like ask for more interesting ideas than the typical tourist traps.
Yeah.
OpenAI is releasing the new GPT OSS 120B and OSS-20B open weight language models that deliver strong real-world performance at low costs. They're both available under the flexible Apache 2.0 license, and these models on reasoning tasks demonstrate strong tool use capabilities and are optimized for efficient deployment on consumer hardware. The 120B model achieves near parity with OpenAI O4 Mini on core reasoning benchmarks, while running efficiently on a single 80 gigabyte GPU. Yeah, I wanted those around. The 20B model delivers similar results to the OpenAI O3 Mini on common benchmarks and can run on edge devices with 16 gigs memory, making it ideal for on-device use cases, local inference, or rapid iteration without costly infrastructure. I definitely will be trying to play with this if it's in Hugging Face on my laptop, because I like to have a little model on my laptop that I can just kind of quickly prompt, especially if I'm on an airplane or something. I don't use it for coding because it's a little slow for that, but just fixing text, helping me write stuff, that kind of thing. So those local models are really nice. They're also both compatible with the Responses API and are designed to be used within agentic workflows with exceptional instruction following, tool use like web search or Python code execution, and reasoning capabilities.
I'm still stuck on the 16 gigabytes of memory on your video card. I just still remember I bought my first video card. It had 256 megabytes. It was like a high-end video card, and now I'm like, God, these things got so much bigger and faster. Okay, I'm officially old. Got it.
Yeah, actually, it's at 16 gigabyte memory. I think that was was RAM, but you're right. It's probably GPU memory, which I don't know if my Mac has that, so maybe that's not like the one that. But my gaming desktop has 16 gigs of memory for sure, and the video card.
Yeah, I still run an M1 for my personal, and I don't think it has anywhere close. But I definitely run same thing like you. I keep the models local, and I play with them a little bit just to kind of test them out, and as I'm doing stuff, but less of a use case for planes recently.
Yeah, when I upgraded to my M4 MacBook Pro from my M1, I didn't max out memory. Thinking about it, I had 64 gigs on my last one. 64 would be playing on this one now, and I'm like, in hindsight now, I was like, I probably should have gone for more memory. Just because these models are getting nothing but bigger, heavier, and more hungry. So, well, Microsoft Research has developed my favorite project code name in a while, Project Ire, an autonomous AI agent that reverses engineers software to files to determine if they're malicious, achieving a 0.98 precision and a 0.83 recall on Windows driver datasets. System uses LLMs combined with decompilers, binary analysis tools, and memory sandboxes to analyze code without human assistance. The technology addresses a significant cloud security challenge where Microsoft Defender scans over 1 billion devices monthly, requiring manual reviews of suspicious files by experts who face burnout and alert fatigue. Project Ire automates this gold standard malware classification process at scale. The system creates an auditable chain of evidence for each analysis using tools like Anger and Ghidra to reconstruct control flow graphs and identify malicious behaviors like process termination, code injection, and command and control communication. It was the first reverse engineer at Microsoft to author a conviction case for blocking an APT malware sample. And real-world testing on 4,000 hard target files that could be classified by other automated systems, Project Ire achieved 0.89 precision with only 4% false positives, demonstrating potential for deployment alongside human analysts. And the prototype will be integrated into Microsoft Defender as binary analyzer for threat detection later this year. This development represents a practical application of agentic AI and cybersecurity building on the same foundation as GraphRag and Microsoft Discovery, with future goals to detect novel malware directly in memory at cloud scale.
I mean, this is pretty cool. I mean, yeah, obviously they had to go back to the alert fatigue and burnout to like give it the business use case, but being able to kind of run through it with that level of precision is pretty remarkable. Especially if you've worked with security people, there's always false positives and whatnot. So 4% false positives means you're not, then sending it to your human analysts to do too much, but they're not missing that much either. If you tackle this with a security and layers, type of methodology, then it's a great, solid middle piece to kind of hopefully make your security team have to do less day-to-day operations work and let them get really through their project work, which will make everyone be better and safer.
Yep. I mean, the idea of using AI in all these use cases, I mean, I've got like a bunch of ideas that I'm kicking around for the day job and things I want to do next year and using agentic, and like, it's cool. Like, it's like, I can think of like all the things that can make us more efficient at and more productive with. And it's like, wow, that's just a great use case. And so, there's a lot to do still. I think it's, we're just scratching the surface of what it can do. And then, there's other areas where I'm using it to like help my friend with his front end development of his website. And it's like, I don't know anything about front end code and this thing is broken, but his developer is no longer available to us. And so it's like, I'm having AI go figure it out, and like, nope, it's not working still. You can see it in the screenshot, and make AI generate the screenshots and compare them and say, here's the working site, here's the new test site. Like, do they match? It's like, oh no, they don't match. Okay, why? And like, we can work through all these details. So like, and like, that's just me. I mean, I know enough coding to be a good backend developer. I can do APIs, I can do all the backend stuff, but like when it comes to front end, JavaScript, I learned HTML, and then I learned CSS, and I said, screw this noise. So, to be able to have those kinds of flexibilities of these type of things is just hugely valuable. And, so being able to have that with an agentic type capability for security people who are typically always overworked, is definitely a big benefit. And I can just see, as we get more sophisticated with AI, that, yes, there's some job threat to it for sure, but there's also like, hey, this takes away a lot of the noise of the busy work that a lot of us had to do beforehand that now we don't do. Like adding a server to a Terraform file now is like so easy. I just tell it, hey, I need a server. It looks like this. Just take my existing template that I always use and modify it, versus me copy pasting and doing, little twiddly stuff. AI just does it so much faster and more efficient.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody the other day. I was like, all that, mundane work that, would take 4, 6, 8 hours of just like, hey, go add tags to all my Terraform, because if you're not AWS, you can't just do it the default. It just does. And I was working on something, I was like, oh, I want to know where the path of this is. So if I see it, I know where to go debugging. I was like, hey, AI, go add this tag of source, and then just give it the module path so I can find it all later. And it was like, in 3 minutes, it had done all that. I was like, and it definitely didn't, I would have missed a lot more than I'm sure it missed just by going through and summing up, because this was on Azure, so you can't just add at the top level.
Well, it's sort of funny because, a lot of times where I'll start with a project is I'll say like, hey, AI, take a look at this code base. Here's what it does. Here's the basic functionality of it. Here's how it was designed. And look at it with a well-architected framework perspective. Look at it as an architect. And, how would you make this app more scalable, more secure, more reliable, more, yada, yada, yada. And then just let it kind of come up with, recommendations and a pretty detailed to-do list of things that it would do and the reasons why and what it thinks the benefits would be of it. And then it typically tells you like how long it thinks it would take you to do that. And like some of the estimates are, like this is a 6-week project. I'm like, cool, let's do it, AI. Let's build this together. And it's like, okay. And then I'm done in 2 days with like a major refactoring work, which is kind of like, that's not quite the same as what you said, but I mean, it's definitely still not as scalable or as fault tolerant as some of the things that a true engineering team could do. But for a lot of like the small little projects that I have at my house, like they're not, it's my shitty code to begin with, and so it's not great code, and anything is better than what I could write most of the time by myself. So
yeah, we can definitely go on with this conversation for a while, because now we're into how kind of we leverage the AI, and we've definitely bypassed the malware at scale conversation.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to, like you and Ryan have that repo, the shitty script repo, like let AI say, how would you make these shitty scripts better?
I don't want to.
I bet it would have really interesting recommendations.
I've definitely given it some old code. I was like, read this and make it be, upgraded to modern, because like I have a few scripts that were still like Python 2.7 that I haven't used, but I was like, just for the fun of it, I was like, upgrade this to 3 and go refactor, and make it be better. It's like, I mean, the fact that AI, which I found is a decent way to do it, but you also kind of end up in loops sometime of like, test-driven development.
Well, that's where you and I, as people know what we're doing,
right, don't necessarily
can recognize the loops or give it better recommendations. Because I will say, using it a lot now and doing a lot of coding work and doing different things, like it makes a lot of bad assumptions sometimes, where like it'll implement something in a really weird way, and I'm like, whoa, what are you thinking? Like that's just a terrible way to do this. And so, like, as someone, if you're just purely vibe coding, I could see how you could get in trouble where you just make spaghetti code forever. But if you have a little bit of context to it, I think you can do some magic and do some really cool stuff. But you have to have enough context and enough awareness how software works and how these practices and benchmarks and things are, and that you can tell the AI what to do. And it's very similar to like if you go to a visual image creation AI. I'm trying to forget when the name is one of the popular ones at the moment, but like Stability or whatever. But if you were to tell it, like, draw me a picture, the way that you would describe that picture as a person who's not artistic in that way is probably very different than how an artist would actually describe what he wants it to draw. And the results of you and that other person writing prompts to draw basically the same picture, they'll make a better picture because they understand
100%.
Artistic things, they understand shading, they understand light and perspective and all these things that you're probably not really thinking about. And so again, this is where I think even as a coder, I know code, I know how it works, I know the patterns, I know how the systems work. And that's why I'm good at using prompts versus other people who are not.
Yeah, I mean, you have to still know enough to debug the setup, and what it's doing. It's not at the point where you can just be like, go run wild. I kind of equate it to like an intern or like a just out of college person. They might have a general understanding and can do it, but at one point you still need to help them out along the way and give it that guidance. Otherwise, I'm terrified of what it's going to build because it's not going to work the way you think it is.
Yeah. Again, that's why you have to have good QA. You have to have good things. And we've talked about a lot of this in Cloud Journeys in the past about, building proper QA, like Bolt, who's our friendly AI-driven chatbot on the CloudPod Slack channel. You can go and chat with him if you want to. He'll respond to you with his HAL type personality. But there's things that Matt and us we use it for. They're only allowed to us. But that like our show notes and how it formats our show notes, and it does that. It has actually a Google Doc, what I have called the QA doc, And that doc is literally how it basically self-tests itself. So when it makes changes to the insert logic for the Google Sheet, it basically validates that it didn't insert it incorrectly, and it validates against the sheet. And basically, if it doesn't have a certain level of confidence that it's improved or done as well as the sheet is, it will reject the change.
The joy of test-driven development. But you also have to make sure it does decent testing, because at one point, the test it did, I don't remember what I was doing, but I looked at what the test was, and I was like, this isn't actually what you're supposed to be doing here. So I had to go fix the test that it developed.
Yeah, and that happens too. Again, you had to good testing practices, because even in my Google Docs, when it first wrote the first test, it was like every bullet should be these text. I'm like, no. The bullets are going to change. The text is going to change. I need you to focus on formatting only, because that's the part that I care about, not about the actual text itself. And so I was like, oh, I got it now. And so then it changed the way it wrote the test. But anyways, well, we should move on to other AI news versus personal project story time. Claude Opus 4.1 has achieved a 74.5 on the SWE benchmark verified coding benchmark, with GitHub reporting notable improvements in multi-file code refactoring and Rakuten praising its precision in debugging large code bases without introducing bugs. The new model launched this morning, so I have not had time to play with it. It is already available on major cloud providers, including Bedrock, Google's Cloud Vertex AI, all the same pricing of the Opus 4. So if you were already paying through the nose for Opus 4, you can now continue to pay that same price for Opus 4.1, which makes it accessible for all your enterprise cloud needs. Opus 4.1 uses a hybrid reasoning approach with extended thinking capabilities up to 64,000 tokens for complex benchmarks, while maintaining simpler scaffolding for coding tasks using just bash and file editing tools. Windsurf, which is a very popular vibe coding tool, reports that the upgrade delivers a 1 standard deviation improvement over Opus 4 on their junior developer benchmark, comparable to the performance leap between Sonnet 3.7 and Sonnet 4. For cloud developers, the immediate upgrade path is straightforward. Simply switch to Claude Opus 4.1 2025-8.5 via the API with no pricing change or major integration modifications required, which is really the beauty of this. I did enable it in Claude earlier, but I didn't want to take the risk of it messing a bunch of stuff up, so I turned it back. But it was literally /model, picked it, I ran one command to test it, and then I moved it back to Sonnet 4, or when I was using, and I'll get back to it next week when I have more time to test it. Because again, it came out this morning and it's been a busy day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of playing with this. I like you, I haven't had time today to play with it, so we'll have to compare notes next week.
Yep, definitely. Let's move on to our friends at AWS. Maybe didn't have the best earnings, but they still are announcing a ton of features. So
always.
They're launching the G6F instance with fractional GPU capabilities, offering you 1/8, 1/4, 1/2 GPU partitions powered by the NVIDIA L4 Tensor Core GPU, enabling customers to right-size workloads and reduce costs compared to full GPU instances. The instances target graphic workloads, including remote workstations for media production, CAD engineering, ML research, and game streaming, with configurations ranging from 3 to 12 gigabyte GPU memory paired with AMD EPYC processors. This is AWS's first GPU partitioning offering, addressing a common challenge of GPU underutilization, where workloads don't require a full GPU resource but previously had no smaller option available. Available across 11 regions with on-demand, spot, and savings plan pricing options, requiring NVIDIA Grid Driver 18.4 Plus and supporting Amazon DCV for remote desktop access, the fractional approach could significantly reduce costs for your organization running multiple smaller GPU workloads. Think workstations in particular. For all those CAD use cases.
I mean, the fractional GPUs is an interesting concept where you probably, for most people, don't need that massive of a GPU. So it's almost reminds me of the T series, where it's not burstable, but you get these really small sizes. So if you're just doing kind of one-off things, or you need it for a specific project, then you can get that small usage. Or even for your developers, if you're wanting to give them each a server and they don't need a full GPU at all times, you can kind of give it that way. So I think this is pretty interesting of how to kind of build it out, and I think it's a cool feature.
Any immediate use cases that come to mind for you for it, or just playing right now?
Playing right now.
Very good. All right. Amazon DocumentDB has got the serverless treatment this week. They'll now automatically scale compute and memory usage using the DocumentDB capacity unit, or DCU, where each DCU provides approximately 2 gigabytes of memory plus corresponding CPU and networking resources, the capacity from a half a DCU to 256 DCUs. The service offers up to 90% cost savings compared to provisioning for peak capacity and charges a flat rate per second of DCU usage, making it cost-effective for variable workloads, multi-tenant environments, and mixed read-write scenarios. Existing DocumentDB clusters can add serverless instances without data migration by simply changing the instance type, requiring DocumentDB version 5 or higher, with the ability to mix provisioned and serverless instances in the same cluster. Key use cases include handling traffic spikes for promotional events, managing individual database capacity across multi-tenant SaaS applications, and building agentic AI applications that leverage DocumentDB's built-in vector search capabilities. The service maintains all standard DocumentDB features, including MongoDB-compatible APIs, read replicas, performance insights, and AWS service integrations, while automatically tracking CPU, memory, and network utilization to scale without disrupting your availability.
I mean, it's great that they GA'd this, and it's, kind of nice if you're playing with everything. I always just get worried when I see, oh, it's this DCU model. It's kind of back to the tokens and everything else. They've abstracted out how these pricing is so much that your FinOps team is going to have to learn kind of another methodology, and making sure that as a developer, as a, infrastructure person or SRE, that you're leveraging and building these things to the correct scale that you need and having that mixture to be able to burst up. So,
I mean, the one thing with the DCU model, and I see it a bunch of places because I've been doing a lot more serverless with like Valkey, and this DCU model comes up a lot. I actually just moved the CloudPod database to serverless Aurora
nice.
for MySQL, and so I've been getting a little more exposed to the whole whatever that one's called, something like DCUs as well, and it's a little bit opaque. I definitely don't love it as a model, but it is so much cheaper that it's so much worth it.
Well, especially for small workloads like ours, like it doesn't really need much. So being so minimal is perfectly fine. Like I've done it with like dev environments too, is great. Have it in there. If you really want, set it to scale up at 8 a.m. and turn it off at 6 p.m. and then let the auto scaling kind of handle it after that, if it needs to, if a developer's working late or whatever. But that's where I find it really cheap and really valuable. Feel like a lot of times for production workloads at that point, I've seen more people move back to actual full metrics on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you make the judgment call what makes sense. So like I was using a MySQL box running on a Docker container, and ever since I moved the back end of the CloudPod website to EFS instead of local disk, I wasn't really happy with a bunch of the performance aspects of it. And so it just, moving it to Aurora was the right natural thing, and I didn't want to spend a fortune on it because like the cost of my container is a lot less money than the cost of RDS.
Mm-hmm.
But also the cost of EFS at provision capacity is very high. So you start doing the calculation of what makes the most sense. But I'm so far pretty happy with it. And again, like a lot of the CloudPod stuff for our website is, we don't actually host the RSS feeds for the actual shows. It's used by our podcast hosting partner. Just really think it's there as the show notes themselves. That's mostly static content that gets cached by Cloudflare anyways. So we don't have a lot of stuff hitting the back end of our database that often. So it's been surprisingly good.
Glad to hear.
There are a lot of cloud cost management tools out there, but only Archera provides cloud commitment insurance. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Archera gives you the cost savings of a 1 or 3 year AWS savings plan with a commitment as short as 30 days. If you don't use all the cloud resources you've committed to, they will literally put the money back in your bank account to cover the difference. Other cost management tools may say they offer commitment insurance, but remember to ask, will you actually give me my money back? Archera will. Click the link in the show notes to check them out on the AWS Marketplace.
All right, introducing the Application Recovery Controller Region Switch, which is a multi-region application recovery service from AWS. It provides automated orchestration for multi-region application failover, addressing enterprise concerns about untested recovery procedures and unknown dependencies during regional outages. The service supports 9 execution block types, including EC2 auto-scaling, Aurora Global Database Failover, Route 53 health checking, and EKS ECS resource scaling, enabling coordinated recovery across compute, database, and DNS services. Region Switch uses a regional data plane architecture where recovery plans execute from target region, eliminating dependencies on the impacted region and providing more resilient recovery operations. Continuous validation runs every 30 minutes to check resource configurations and IAM permissions, or the service costs $70 per month per plan, supporting up to 100 execution blocks or 25 child plans. Organizations can balance cost and reliability by configuring standby resource percentages though actual capacity depends on regional availability at the recovery time, making regular testing essential for confidence in disaster recovering strategies.
I like the note in here. To facilitate the best possible outcomes, we recommend you regularly test your recovery plans and maintain appropriate service quotas in your standby region. Because the amount of times I've seen people try to do DR testing and then they hit a service quota limit, it's comical at this point. But as you look through the document in this a little bit more detail, it's kind of like its own, like they made a UI to kind of build out your test plan and everything else. So like it feels like a good like workflow engine, which is really what it is here. And it solves a lot of those use cases. If you're not running an overly complex app, but you do need something like this set up, it feels like a good way to kind of start the process out. I think eventually over time, as they add more resources to it, it'll be good. But for a lot of like medium-sized businesses, this will check a lot of boxes for you.
I mean, doesn't Azure have very similar technology in some of their regional testing? I know this is one of their big, claim to fames, if you will.
Yeah, I know they released a bunch of stuff earlier this year. We were talking about it a little bit before. I meant to try to do some live research beforehand. So I know they added a bunch of testing in there, but I don't think it did this like every 30-minute kind of synchronizing and testing. It was kind of specific services it did, I thought. And this feels like more like a summation of a bunch of services altogether.
Got it. Okay. I like the idea of having, easier DR. There's a bunch of SaaS vendors who make software to help make, application switches a lot easier on AWS or any cloud provider, honestly. But if you're primarily in this ecosystem, I could see this being something very valuable. The costing for $70 per month for plans for up to 100 execution blocks. I mean, I don't know about you, but my apps are bigger than that in many cases, in the enterprise space. So that could get pretty expensive pretty quickly. But I do expect they have probably volume discounts and things you can get if you're that massive and you want to use it. You become their biggest customer and they'll love you forever.
You'd be a great QA tester for them, I'm sure.
AWS Lambda is getting a little bit more thick from the serverless side, with response streaming now supporting 200 megabyte response payloads, which is a 10x increase from the previous 20 megabyte limit, enabling direct processing of larger datasets without compression or S3 intermediary steps. This enhancement targets latency-sensitive applications like real-time AI chat interfaces and mobile apps where time to first byte directly impacts user experience and engagement metrics. The expanded payload capacity opens new use cases, including streaming image-heavy PDFs, music files, and real-time processing of larger datasets directly through the Lambda function. Response streaming is available on Node.js managed runtimes and custom runtimes across all AWS regions where the feature is supported, with the 200 megabit limit now set as the default. This update reduces architectural complexity by eliminating workarounds previously required for payloads exceeding 20 megabytes, potentially lowering costs associated with S3 storage and data transfer fees.
They've solved the problem here of, they mentioned with the S3 intermediary, and in theory, hopefully it would just simplify your workflow. But again, Lambda at 200, especially if you're processing stuff, if it's zipped or already compressed, you're going to run into limits, or other limits on the Lambda, associated with like the temp storage size and things like that. So I would use this with carefulness to make sure that you're not like going to blow stuff up on the other side.
For sure. Moving on to GCP. Gemini CLI is now supporting custom / commands through TOML files and model context protocol prompts, allowing developers to create reusable prompts for common workflows like code reviews or planning tasks. This brings GitHub Copilot-style command functionality to Google's AI assistant in the terminal directly. Commands can be scoped at user level, available across all projects, or project level, checked into Git repos, with namespacing support throughout the directory structure. The implementation uses minimal configuration requirements, just like a prompt field, making it accessible for quick adoption. The MCP integration enables Gemini CLI to automatically expose prompts from configured MCP servers as / commands, supporting both named and positional arguments. And this positions Google to leverage the growing ecosystem of MCP-compatible tools and services. Key use cases include automating code reviews, generating implementations, implementation plans, and standardizing team workflows through standard common command libraries. The shell command execution feature allows integration with existing CLI tools and scripts. And while this is a developer productivity tool rather than a cloud service, it strengthens the Google developer ecosystem play against GitHub Copilot and Amazon Q Developer. The feature is available now as a simple NPM update requiring only a Gemini API key to get started.
I mean, they're copying, the Claude code, and hopefully it becomes a nice way to interact with it. I still like the VS Code plugin and making it kind of interact more that way. I find that a little bit better from the little bit I played with Claude Code. But recently I've been talking to people who say Claude Code's gotten better since the initial release. So I have to go back and kind of, when I find some free time in my day, which doesn't really exist, to go play with this and see if the / commands are all what they say they are now.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. I played with Gemini CLI when it first came out the first couple of days, and then I haven't honestly gone back to it. Mostly because I've been busy with other projects and things to do. But these are interesting ideas that I'm curious to see how they work. Agent-to-agent protocol is getting an upgrade today. Google releases the protocol version 0.3 with gRPC support, security card signing, and Python SDK improvements, positioning it as an open standard for multi-agent AI systems that can communicate across different platforms and vendors. The protocol now has native support in Google's Agent Development Kit, ADK, and offers 3 deployment paths: managed agent engine, serverless cloud runs, or full control with GKE, giving developers flexibility in how they scale their agent systems. Over 150 organizations, including Adobe, ServiceNow, and Twilio, are adopting A2A, with real invitations like Tyson Foods and Gordon Food Service using collaborative agents to share supply chain data and reduce friction in their operations. Google is launching an AI agent marketplace where partners can sell agent-to-agent enabled agents directly to customers, while Agent Space provides a governed environment for users to access these agents with enterprise security controls. The protocol was contributed to the Linux Foundation in June 2024, making it a vendor-neutral standard that could become the HTTP of agent-to-agent comms.
I mean, I feel like agent-to-agent and really getting that going is going to be, and really getting to revolutionize the space. So, any of these upgrades hopefully should be good to help with that. And I do like that, I forgot about this actually, that it was the open source standard, that they did open source it. So it'd be nice to see as that grows, what else they add to it over time and how these agents to agent communication helps to continue to improve things.
Yeah. Agent to agent's basically how you make MCP to MCP work in the cloud. Because one of the things you run into MCP very quickly is, this exists on my local box. And that isn't as helpful. So definitely having that ability is definitely a good thing. All right. Announcing the C4-based VM on the Intel Xeon 6 processor, Granite Rapids, with up to 30% better general compute performance and 60% improvement for ML recommendation workloads compared to previous generations, making them the first major cloud provider to offer the Xeon 6. The C4 shapes include titanium and local SSD variants, delivering 7.2 million max read IOPS and 35% lower across access latency, targeting high-performance databases, big data processing, and media rendering workloads. C4 bare metal instances provide direct CPU memory access for commercial hypervisors and SAP workloads, achieving 132,600 ASAPs, the highest of any comparable machine, with 35% performance improvement over the C3 bare metal. I don't know what an ASAP is, but it sounds fancy.
I was just about to ask you if you knew what that was.
The expanded C4 series maintains existing CUD discounts and integrations with managing instance groups and GK custom compute classes, available in 19 zones with shapes ranging from 4 to 288 vCPUs. And the key use cases include AI inference with FP16 trained models using the Intel AMX FP16, financial services companies requiring microsecond level latency improvements, and visual effects rendering with reported 50% speedups over N2D instances for the visual effects world.
I'm still stuck on what ASAP stand for, and all I can find is ASAP. Thank you, Google, for not understanding what I'm trying to have you do. Accelerated SAP is a structured methodology in developing SAP to guide and accelerate the implementation of SAP systems.
Lovely. Google is launching Cloud Hub Optimization and Cost Explorer into public preview. It was announced at Google Next in private preview. The public preview now provides application-centric cost visibility across multiple projects without additional charges, addressing the challenge of tracking expenses for applications that span dozens of GCP projects. The tool integrates cloud building cost data with cloud monitoring utilization metrics to surface underutilized resources like GKA clusters with idle GPUs, showing average vCPU utilization at the project level to identify optimization candidates. Unlike traditional cost dashboards that show aggregate compute engine costs, Cost Explorer breaks down spending by specific products, including GKA clusters, persistent disks, and cloud load balancing for more granular cost attributions. Built on App Hub Application Framework, the solution reorganizes cloud resources around applications rather than projects, competing with AWS Cost Explorer and Azure Cost Management by focusing on application-level cost optimizations. Major League Baseball's principal cloud architect reports the tool helps monitor costs across tens of business units and hundreds of developers, the particular value of organizations shifting left on cloud cost management. And if you'd ever had used the Google Cloud Hub Optimization and Cost Explorer previously, you know they're hot garbage. So this was a very well appreciated announcement at Google Next that they were finally going to make a major upgrade to it. I've yet played with it. We are trying to get into the public preview, which I don't know if we'll be able to talk about publicly until it goes GA, but we are very interested in this for our day job as well.
I like how all these things are adding the GPU metrics and GKE idle, to kind of really show that, as you're leveraging these as a company, it's important to also handle the FinOps side of it so that you're not burning cash faster than you thought you were. So it's interesting to kind of see that slowly grow over time. The AWS and Azure cost management both have a lot to give. I don't really see it a lot at the application level optimizations for either of them. It's been a couple of years since I really dove into AWS Cost Explorer, but Azure to me doesn't really get you down to the application level without a bunch of manual work.
Yeah, Amazon's sort of similar. You had to tag things a certain way to get that visibility, but you do get it after that, which is helpful.
Yeah. Well, out of the box would be nice, but probably don't have enough knowledge, I guess.
Could be. Let's move on to your best friend, Microsoft, who's got a bunch of announcements for us this week. You don't want to defend yourself for being a Microsoft fanboy? I'm shocked.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Definitely not a fanboy, but take what you can get at times.
Yeah. They're introducing Microsoft Sentinel Data Lake. It's entering public preview as a fully managed security data lake built directly into Sentinel, allowing organizations to store all security data in one place with cost-effective long-term retention while eliminating the need to build custom data architectures. The service integrates with 350 plus existing Sentinel connectors, including Microsoft 365, Defender, Azure, AWS, and GCP sources, storing data in open formats that support both Kusto queries and Python notebooks through a new Visual Studio Code extension for advanced analytics, because everything goes into Visual Studio Code. Pricing separates data ingestion storage from analytical consumption, enabling customers to store high-volume, low-fidelity logs like network traffic cost-effectively in the data lake tier, while automatically mirroring critical analytics tier data to the lake at no extra charge. The key differentiator from AWS Security Lake is the native integration with Microsoft's security ecosystem and managed compute environment. Target use case includes forensic analysis, compliance reporting, and tracking slow attacks over extended timeframes and running ML-based anomaly detection on historical data, with results easily promoted back to the analytics tier for investigation.
What I do like about this is the multi-streams into the data lake. So many of these things, like they said, VPC, VNet flow logs are so chatty, but you have to have them. And God forbid a security incident, but on the flip side, so many contracts say that you have to have these things. So, but throwing those into real-time log analysis, CloudWatch, log analytics, anything else like that, immediately blows up your bill. So having that ability to kind of take that in multiple paths is kind of critical. Otherwise, it's not effective. Then being able to kind of retroactively look at that. AWS has had it for years. Hey, throw your VPC flow logs into S3, but pulling them out required, Athena magic. I'm just going to leave it at that, because even following their examples, half the time I swear I never could get it to work without many swearings at it. The negative side of all this is you got to use Kusto queries. So if you're already in the in the Azure landscape, and you're already using log analytics and other things, and Kusto, But if you're not and you're just a security person, it's another query language to kind of learn.
I feel like I don't know what Kusto is. I know what a bunch of other ones are, but what could you maybe fill me in on that one?
So Kusto is their proprietary time series database. So all of Azure metrics, everything else, and you can actually pay for the service and leverage it yourself as Azure Data Explorer. It's literally Kusto under the hood. So then from there, it's like writing your own CloudWatch log queries, and knowing the formats and everything else like that. And it's fast. You can get tons of data back, but you really have to kind of know what you're doing. And I have a few people that I can do magical things with it, I swear. But it's, like most things, it's SQL-like. You still have your starting points, but like you'll start with trace and then you'll pipe that into a bunch of wheres and you can do joins and these crazy things like that.
Got it.
It is powerful though. Like it is it's a good piece of technology.
Well, Microsoft saw Google's new big server and said, we want a big new server too. And so they announced the E128 and E192 VM size up to 992 vCPUs and 1.8 terabytes of RAM, targeting enterprise workloads like, of course, SAP HANA, large SQL databases, and in-memory analytical systems. These new sizes use Intel's 5th Gen Xeon Platinum processors and deliver 30% better performance than the previous EV5 series, which these aren't in the same, like, I thought the naming conventions were the similar between the different classes, but this is the replacement for the EV5. This is an E128 or E192. Like, that's just confusing.
Their entire sizing, though, we were talking about in the pre-show review too, of like all the clouds starting to require a decoder ring. So like the first letter is family, then there's subfamily, then there's features in it. So aka like,
C5GN, yeah.
Yeah. So like then you have like if there's local data, and then if it supports premium or not, storage is another, and then you have the version at the end. So like if you take your decoder ring and read all these, it makes sense. But every time I'm like, oh crap, okay. E is memory, I think. I could be wrong now. I'm actually gonna double check. Yeah. So like E is memory, so that's what the E is, and then you kind of got to work your way down to the rest of the letters. So D, I think, means there's data.
It's sort of funny because it's the E128 or E192 with up to 192 vCPUs, which means the 192 is actually the number of CPUs, not the amount of memory, but it's the E class, which says memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always fun. And then good luck getting capacity for any of these.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get capacity for any of the modern ones.
I mean, say they're available in 14 regions, including East US, West Europe, and Japan East.
So what I've learned as part of my day job is that, yes, they are available there, but it might only be in one of those zones. 3
availability zones, yeah. The same thing happens in GCP too.
Which means, cool, you can do it, but then you can't actually have HA. And maybe for SAP HANA, you don't need HA because...
No, you do. You want HA in your ERP system.
Right. So like, okay, cool. So it's all in one zone. Maybe you're like, it doesn't work and it's always problematic. So like, even working with Microsoft directly and saying, hey, I had this conversation with my account reps. Hey, what do you recommend we use? Here's all the regions we're in because my product's in 14 regions. So we had to they looked at it and it's like, okay, here use this. Then when we went to request the quotas, it was like, well, you can't actually get that. You can only get in 2 of 3 zones. And I was like, that's not really going to work for us. Because that means I have to have everything at larger scales in order to handle a single zonal outage. I don't have a third. It's 50%.
I gotcha. Okay. A couple other things of these to note. They do support the Intel total memory encryption. So if your data needs to be protected, you're worried about VM noisy neighbors stealing your data from memory, which there have been some attacks. This is isolated and won't be impacted by that. And then also these have the Azure Boost technology, providing 400,000 IOPS and 12 gigs of network throughput per second. So that's not too bad of a box if you need the size and the space.
So much data. So much data going through there so quickly.
Azure is announcing a flexible, predictable billing model for the Azure SRE agent. The SRE agent is a pre-built AI tool for root cause analysis and incident responses that use machine learning to analyze logs and metrics, helping site reliability engineers focus on higher value tasks while reducing operational costs and improving uptime. The billing model introduces Azure agent units, because of course we need another way to measure them, as a standardized metric across all Azure agents with a fixed baseline cost of 4 AAU per hour at 40 cents for that hour for continuous monitoring, plus 0.25 AAU per second for active incident response tasks. As part of Microsoft's agentic DevOps strategy, SRE agent represents a shift towards AI-native cloud operations where intelligent agents handle routine tasks automatically, competing with AWS DevOps Guru and Google Cloud's Operations Suite. The dual flow architecture keeps the agents always learning from normal behavior patterns while ready to activate AI components instantly when anomalies are detected, providing 24/7 intelligent monitoring without manual interventions. Target customers include organizations managing complex cloud workloads who want predictable operational costs, and the usage-based pricing means you only pay for active incident response time before the baseline monitoring fee.
I really want to play with this. A little terrified of what the cost is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know how to calculate those costs.
Yeah. I mean, even with all the everything with FinOps, everyone has their own compute units now, and it's abstracted out, which we already talked about. So I'll get off that high horse. I do want to join the waitlist and kind of play with this because I think it could be pretty cool. Given that, I run a SaaS, which is 24/7, and kind of having that data and having that help our team. And to me, this is like augmenting the team would be pretty cool to have out there. I don't know if the costs can be worth it once you kind of figure out all those pieces, but it's a cool feature as long as its first response isn't, hey, scale up everything 12-fold, which is what I assume it might do.
I mean, I like the idea of having these DevOps agents as well. I mean, like, in general, if you does the SRE agent just restart IIS for you because your app has a memory leak? I mean, like, does it start band-aiding a bunch of bad things that you're doing in your app? Or is it actually helpful in fixing the problem? I guess that's my one fear of some of these like very SRE operationally heavy driven AI agents I've seen is that they're very fix a band-aid, not actually fix a root.
Yeah, but if it stops you from getting paged at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night,
I mean, I appreciate that.
It might be worth the fix the band-aid.
But again, like if that's all it's ever doing,
then it might not be worth it.
Yeah. Well, Azure's finally giving us live resize feature for premium SSD V2 and Ultra NVMe disks, which enables storage capacity expansion without downtime, addressing a common pain point where disk resizing traditionally requires VM restarts and application disruption. It does what? Hasn't Amazon had this forever? And you're telling me those fancy Ultra NVMe disks I paid a fortune for didn't have this? Okay. I was hoping maybe they were better than AWS and that they took so long to release this because they also allow you to shrink the VM disk size, and that is not the case. So this is only to grow, just like Amazon has had forever and GCP persistent disk resizing has had for quite a while. This supports cost optimizations by allowing you to provision smaller disks like we've been doing for decades with thin provisioning and scale up only when needed. And target use cases include production databases, real-time analytics platforms, and high transaction applications where both performance consistency and zero downtime operations are critical requirements. I'm just mad this didn't exist until today.
I actually asked when I first started here why some of our stuff was so big, and they were like, "Well, we can't grow it." And I was like, "What do you mean you can't grow this thing?" They're like, "Well, you got to start here, and that's all you can have." And I was like, "Hold on!" And like you said, there are some features on Azure where I'm dumbfounded they just don't exist yet, like this and then potentially the next conversation we're going to have. And it's amazing that it took so long to get there.
Yeah, I mean, years late at this point.
I mean, I remember I wrote a script because they wanted to thin provision. Elmer was one of my clients at one point wanted to thin provision something. And essentially what we did was we rated the disk at the Windows level and like we wrote a whole script to do it. And then like in true Microsoft fashion or in AWS fashion, like a year later, you could then scale up disk. But that was like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized how long I've been on the cloud and we're going to bypass that conversation. But like,
Moving
it's just
right
one
along.
of those things. Like, why was this not here, guys?
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Well, if you were excited about disk growth, you also get Azure Backup now supporting agentless multi-disk crash consistent backups for VMs and general availability, eliminating the need to install backup agents or extensions on virtual machines while maintaining data consistency across multiple disks. This feature addresses a common pain point for enterprises running multi-disk applications like databases, where crash consistency across all disks is critical for successful recovery, competing directly with snapshots from EBS and GCP's persistent disk snapshots. The agent's approach reduces VM overhead and reduces simplified backup management by leveraging Azure's infrastructure level capabilities rather than guest OS agents. Now, I'll tell you that if you are running this on a SQL Server or Oracle, things like ACID compliance are very, very important. And you need to probably really test the crap out of this, because my experience has been that if you are not QSing the data to the disk, it doesn't matter if you snapshotted all of the partitions together, you still are going to have a bad time. So make sure that you have some testing here. Now, I think you can get away with agentless because built into Windows, you have shadow disk copies and things like that. So it's probably a little bit better than some of the Linux implementations of this feature. But again, your experience will vary. And I highly recommend you test this under a high load situation. So get SQL load, run it against a database, and test this and see if you can recover cleanly without doing major data recovery or validations.
Yeah, this also qualifies as, what do you mean this just wasn't here category?
I mean, I already covered that they're way behind. So yeah, I mean, Amazon and GCP had this forever ago. So
yeah, I mean, like you said, test it, make sure that it is quiescing all the data. I've been burned by this before when we set up something with, I think it was like Postgres back in the day on AWS before it was in RDS. But test it, make sure it works, because you're gonna have a bad day with your backups otherwise.
I mean, in general, like idea of striping disks and things like that make this problematic are also kind of terrifying to me. Like, you know, to have multi-disk operations that require write order consistency in the cloud. I mean, now with things like Azure SAN, I would hope that you could just get an iSCSI attachment and not have to do this craziness. But I mean, these things also happen to people who didn't have that option before. So it's a nice, maybe future option for you.
I mean, there are things that you just can't do on the managed services too. So like they're talking about SQL. You can't run SSRS on Azure SQL, which still dumbfounds me. You know, you have to run a managed instance in order to run SSRS.
You can't run CLR. You can't run in-memory databases. There's all kinds of limitations of things you can't do.
So, you know, there are use cases for this. And don't get me wrong, I would like to think that there's always a managed service that will get all that toil away. But there are times that you need these things.
Well, in our final story for tonight, Matt, DigitalOcean is back in our other cloud section. They're consolidating its AI offerings under a new unified platform called Gradient, combining GPU infrastructure, agent development tools, and pre-built AI applications into a single integrated experience for developers. The platform includes the infrastructure, GPU compute, and inference, the platform, which are those tools, and then applications or pre-built agents for common use cases. DigitalOcean is expanding the GPU options with the AMD Instinct MI325X available this week, along with the NVIDIA H200s coming next month, providing more choice and flexibility for different AI workload requirements. Using DigitalOcean, AI users won't need to change anything, as all current projects and APIs will continue to work, with the rebrand focusing on improving organization and documentation. In general, if you are not a huge AI use case where you need those $10 billion in capital investment worth of compute capacity, DigitalOcean might be a great choice for you for some of your smaller workloads. Highly recommend them. I'm a fan of the underdog that is known as DigitalOcean, even though I stopped using them for my own personal projects a long time ago because I needed more Amazon playing. But if I didn't do the podcast and I didn't care about all my listeners and knowing what those features do, I would move right back to DigitalOcean in a heartbeat, because I do love their support and service and highly recommend.
Yeah, I mean, you're a small, medium-sized business. You don't need a lot. They're a great option. They're, you know, like you said, their support's good. I've played with them in the past. I've actually done a few migrations off of DigitalOcean. Sorry, guys. But they definitely help every step along the way. So, and if you don't need a massive thing or you're already there, it's an easy way to kind of step into your AI application building endeavors.
Indeed. Well, Matt, we've reached another end of the podcast. Sad to go.
We made it with two of us again.
Well, yeah, and we cut 20 minutes off this one. So we did much better at the editing.
Cropping it is a lot harder because I'm always like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. We can talk about that. But
yeah, there's been a bunch of really good stories that, you know, we're trying to give you guys a really good high value level of content. But sometimes like it's just a bit fun to make some of these announcements, like some of the Azure ones we just talked about. I was like, really? Like we got to talk about that. Like that's
I got to make fun of them a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So Anyways, I will talk to you next week here in the cloud, Matt, and hopefully we'll be joined by our co-hosts as well.
See you then.
Later. Bye.
And that's all for this week in cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Archera. Be sure to click the link in our show notes to learn more about their services. While you're at it, head over to our website at thecloudpod.net, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, join our Slack community, send us your feedback, and ask any questions you might have. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.